You may have realized that being healthy feels different than it did in the past now that you're over 50. If you want to maximize your health potential but don't have time to read through overwhelming pages of Google links, this is the show for you. Welcome to Healthy Tips After 50. We love doing the research, finding solutions, talking to health experts, and learning what works and what doesn't. Now, your host. She spent the last 25 years dedicated to feeling her best and is here to share her best findings with you, Susan Rosen.
Hello, everyone. This is your host, Susan Rosen. And today I am going to be talking about and sharing information about how to safely do your food shopping. What's important about this, especially now during the summertime, is that it's the first step in providing safe and healthy foods for yourself and your family. And it's important to carefully select, package, and transport the food from your grocery store or farmer's market to your home and to keep it safe and you safe. Knowing how to select produce, dairy, meats, and seafood can reduce your chance of foodborne illness. This year, roughly 1 in 6 Americans will suffer from a bout of food poisoning. So if you take that and put it out into the whole world, particularly Europe and Latin America, so on and so forth, you can see how many people these kinds of food issues affect. So harmful bacteria and other microbes can mean more than just an upset stomach. Tainted food kills around 3,000 people every year. And the risk of getting sick is higher if you're pregnant, which probably nobody listening to this is, but under the age of 5, not that either, or over 65, or if you have a weakened immune system. So follow these tips for a safe shopping experience. First off, always check for the cleanliness of the place where you're buying your food. And only buy your food from reputable businesses that follow food safety regulations. You can determine the general impression that you get from the place and also make sure that it looks and smells clean. If provided, use the hand sanitizer at the store's entrance, particularly now during COVID. Wipe your hands and also wipe the handle of the shopping cart. I know my husband and I do that every time we go into a store. Clean your hands before sampling any kind of food. These days, I'm not sure I would sample any food anyways, but like if you're at a farmer's market, I guess. Either bring moist towelettes or carry a bottle of hand sanitizer to use before you taste any samples. I would say probably be good to have both. And if you reuse grocery bags, wash them often. I'm afraid I'm not real good at that, but I am trying to get better. And then shop like in a grocery store or a farmer's market too, I guess. Shop in this order in order to have food stay safe. Gather non-perishable items first. Then select refrigerated and frozen items. Stop at the deli counter last and place the deli meats near the other cold items in your grocery cart. And put fresh fruits and veggies on top of other foods in your cart. For dairy and eggs, when you're buying dairy products, choose cartons and containers that are cold. Make sure that they are cold and in a refrigerated section. Make sure the eggs are clean and aren't broken or cracked. And buy milk and other dairy products toward the end of your shopping trip, because this will lessen the total time that they are out of refrigeration. Avoid raw milk, which can be contaminated with Campylobacter, I can never pronounce that right, E. coli, Listeria, or Brucella. And check the ingredients list to make sure that soft cheeses like brie and Hispanic-style cheeses like queso fresco and cotija are made with pasteurized milk. And if you like a runny yolk, when you cook your eggs, look for pasteurized eggs. which have already been treated to kill salmonella. And when you go in to a store, use produce bags like a glove to pick up and wrap raw meat, poultry, and seafood packages so you don't have to get it on your hands. Separate raw meat, poultry, and seafood from fruits, vegetables, and other foods in your shopping cart and away from your grocery bags. Pick up the most perishable items like seafood last before you hit the checkout. I think we already talked about that a little bit. Wash reusable cloth produce and grocery bags, ideally after each use, to kill any microbes they may be carrying. And we talked about that too. But, it never hurts to repeat these things. Check to make sure there are no holes, tears, or openings in food packages. Frozen food should be solid with no signs of thawing, and refrigerated food should feel cold. Check the safety seals on products. And remember that a loose lid on a jar means the vacuum has been lost and the product may very well be contaminated. And don't buy a food product whose seal seems tampered with or damaged. And report any of these kinds of things, as well as defective caps, to the store manager. Remember to avoid buying any cans that are deeply dented, bulging, rusting, or have a dent on either the top or the side seam, as deeply dented or bulging cans may be a warning sign of botulism, and cans with a sharp dent may damage the seam and allow bacteria to get into the can. I never knew those things, but I do now. Over in the meat and poultry section, as we take our little tour of the supermarket, ignore, quote, raised without hormones, unquote, on chicken and turkey labels. I don't know if you realize this or not, but it's illegal to give those animals hormones. It is not illegal, though, to give hormones to cattle and hogs. So we were just talking about chicken and turkey, no hormones. For the cattle and the hogs, however, you probably don't want to buy any that have received hormones, but they can sell them. Unless you cook your meat until it's well done, skip, quote, anything that says it's mechanically tenderized, needle tenderized, or blade tenderized beef. I've never seen that where I shop, but who knows? It's been pierced by tiny needles that can push microbes from the surface into the meat. Make sure all the packaging is tightly sealed and that the package is cold to the touch. Choose packaged chicken that looks pink, not gray. Eesh. Always look for the safe food handling label on packages of bacon and fresh sausage. That label means that the meat has undergone safe processing and includes handling and cooking tips. Select meats and poultry after shopping for non-perishable items. And I think we talked about that once already. The deli counter. So there's a bug to worry about in deli meat, and that's called listeria. It can live on the meat, on plastic, on metal, and in water. And if listeria has contaminated the slicer, it can be almost impossible to get rid of. So to lower your risk of getting it, make sure that the deli clerk puts on new gloves after handling each hunk of meat or cheese and places sliced meat or cheese on paper when weighing it, that is on the scale. And if you're over 65 or have a weakened immune system, try packaged deli meat, which is usually less likely to be contaminated. And don't buy more deli meat than you can eat within a few days. And remember that listeria can grow at refrigerator temperatures. So just because you stuck it in the refrigerator doesn't mean that that's going to kill any of the listeria that might be on your meat. Now we'll go down to the seafood counter. Only buy fresh and packaged fish if it's refrigerated or nestled in ice. It should not smell fishy, sour, or ammonia-like. And whole fish should have firm flesh, red gills, clear eyes, and no odor. Can't say that very well, can I? Avoid fillets that are discolored, dark, or dry around the edges. Look to see that flesh is shiny and firm and not separating from the bone, that the odor of it is fresh and mild rather than being really fishy smelling. I'm sure we all know what that is. Fresh shrimp, scallops, and lobster meat should have a pearl-like color with little or no odor at all. Dark spots on shrimp are harmless. That's good to know. And they occur if the shrimp haven't been treated with additives like the preservative sodium bisulfite. That's good to know too. Buy unwrapped, cooked seafood such as shrimp, crab, or smoked fish only if it is displayed in a separate case or a physically separated section from raw fish. Bacteria on raw fish can contaminate cooked fish. And avoid frozen seafood that has ice crystals on it, which may mean that it has been stored for a long time or thawed and refrozen. Frozen fish should always be rigid and not bendable. That's good advice as well. Okay, on to the produce. Buy fresh cut produce like bagged salad greens or half a melon only if it's refrigerated or has been nestled in ice. Skip raw alfalfa, mung bean, or other kinds of sprouts if you're pregnant, over 65, or immunocompromised. Microbes that can cause food poisoning love the warm, damp conditions that are required to grow sprouts. And don't buy raw or fresh juice or cider unless the label says it has been pasteurized. If you go to a farmer's market, go early in the morning to avoid produce that's been sitting out all day, and choose loose produce rather than packaged so you have more control over what you select. I know myself, I like certain kinds of fruit. So with things like nectarines, for instance, I like them when they're fairly hard. I don't like them when they're real soft. So I'm going to buy something different than maybe you would. And that's why it's better to choose the loose produce. And that applies in the supermarket as well. For salad bars and hot bars, make sure the cold food is refrigerator cold. And if you don't see steam coming from a hot bar, steer clear of it. And avoid any salad or hot food bar that isn't protected by a sneeze guard. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Especially these days. Although there are a lot of places that don't even have those kind of food bars or salad bars anymore, huh? Oh well. Arrange for food or meal kits to be delivered when you're home. If you're ordering in, from the outside, if you're getting a meal delivery. Check the temperature of perishable food packages with a food thermometer as soon as possible after it's been delivered. And contact the company if any of the food is above 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And don't forget to refrigerate or freeze delivered food as soon as possible. Perishables shouldn't be left out above 40 degrees for more than 2 hours. And after you finish your shopping, take your groceries home immediately and store them right away, which is similar to what we were just talking about, delivered food. If you must run errands and will be out longer than 30 minutes, bring a cooler with you with chill packs for perishable foods. That's what my husband and I do. The temperature of refrigerated food can go up 8 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit on a typical trip home from the store. And perishable foods must be refrigerated within 2 hours and only 1 hour if it's over 90 degrees Fahrenheit outside, which I know that it is in some of the places where some of you listeners live. Keep perishable foods out of the hot trunk in summer and place them in the air-conditioned car instead. Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? Promptly refrigerate or freeze perishable items as soon as you get home. And lastly, remember to wash your hands before and after you handle, clean, and store any food products. So with all of that information, I don't know how much of it you'll actually remember, but if you need to find out more, contact me and I will be happy to send you a transcript of the podcast. And I will also tell you and remind you that I am not a doctor. This is not medical advice. This is just homespun advice that your parents probably knew and maybe most of you knew. But with all of that said, I will say that if you do need any sort of medical advice, go to your own doctor or to the emergency room, and I will be talking to all of you next week.
This has been Healthy Tips After 50 with Susan Rosen. To stay on the cutting edge of the most effective health strategies, subscribe to this podcast and let us know what you thought of the show with a comment or like on iTunes. Visit healthytipsafter50.com for this episode's show notes, more resources, and free offers.